Hi, Dad.
Hello.
Okay, can you actually just like tell me your name and where you're from?
Yeah, my name's Tad Bomer, and I'm from Urbana,
Okay.
Illinois.
So you grew up here,
Yes, I did.
and then
Born
you've
and
been
raised.
back for a little while.
Yes, just over here.
So how old were you when you used to go to the Old Main bookstore?
I was probably 14 through 18 when I would go. Maybe
Okay.
19. Yeah.
And how often would you say that you went?
I don't know if I went with any regularity. I don't remember driving to Champaign to go there like I do now to visit, Jane Addams and Furniture Lounge. But I did when I was downtown to see a movie or go to Marianne's with my friends. We'd stop in there. So I would probably go, I don't know, maybe once every 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of stuff did you buy?
I would always I love looking at new book sections, like the new acquisitions, like we just got this stuff, sections, like right when you walked in, and I would always want to look at with the weird and wonderful stuff you just bought. I remember getting a book on, like, how can I describe this? It was a reproduction of a Victorian book on like how to basically make anything you need to, like in terms of household stuff, or how to make lye, and like how to make this, like, medicine. And it was kind of like sketchy when you think about it, but it was just it was like a alchemical textbook, it seemed to me, when I got it, and that was what's so exciting for me. And it had these, engravings in it, and it was just kind of mysterious. I also got, I don't know, they had a lot of like 50s and 60s paperbacks, which are my favorite because they always are cheap and they have the most interesting content, I think. I bought, books of like humorous poetry there. He had a big section on like the occult and just on like, speculative subjects like that, like UFO, Bigfoot type of thing. I bought, like Victorian ghost story compilations, or anthologies. Um, yeah, a lot of Victorian ghost stories, come to think of it. He had a section on, like 50s pulp fiction. I never actually bought any, but I love looking at the covers. And the only other thing I distinctly remember buying there is the 2 volumes of the, um, the Oxford English Dictionary, the compact edition of that. 2 volumes in tiny, tiny print, 4 pages of the big, set to 1 page of this compact set. And you had to have a magnifying glass, but because somebody had, this set didn't have the magnifying glass with it, he'd give me a discount, which was fun. Which was, I never would have been able to afford it with the magnifying glass, so I got this whole like couple $100 set for just like $20 from him, and I love it. And I took it to college with me, and everybody made fun of me for being such a geek for having it at school, but I loved it.
And you still have it.
Yeah, I still have it, and I found a magnifying glass so I can use it. And I'm sure I bought a lot more books there, but I can't remember them offhand. But I'm usually able to remember when I see a book again in my collection where I bought it from originally. So if I went through all of my hundreds of books, I could probably remember some of the ones I got there. But those are the ones that stick out the most. Are this kind of like do-it-yourself Victorian, like chemistry book, and the dictionary, and a book called Phantasmagoria, which is a collection of early Victorian ghost stories. Yeah, and they had a big section of like just ephemera, old calendars from the 20s, and Victorian advertisements, and in this glass case at the front where he had the cash register, there was all these like memorabilia. I remember there's lots of Beatles stuff, and I love the Beatles, so I really coveted those things, but I never bought anything. And, like political buttons, things like that, CDs, but I never got into that. I just stuck with the paperbacks that I could afford.
And do you remember the person who ran it?
Yeah, a little bit. I can't remember his name, but he had long white hair, and he was generally a pretty friendly guy. I don't think I talked to him too much except when we negotiated that dictionary. But I think he enjoyed having young people roaming around in there. I did one other interaction I distinctly remember was because after a while he just started accumulating a lot of records, or he started putting more and more out. I think, he didn't start out with as many, but they just ended up kind of taking over the middle of the back section of the store. And I should say the shelves went like literally floor to ceiling, and it was so cavernous in there. I just loved it. It was like a world you could step into off of the street that you wouldn't recognize that you were that you were had necessarily come from downtown Champaign, but he had all these records, and they weren't. I guess they were organized, but a lot of them were under tables and things like that. You couldn't really get to them. And I went in there once with my friend. We must have been seniors in high school, and we were really, really into like, late '60s rock and roll. And we went straight to the Rolling Stones, and we started flipping through them. And my friend, who was kind of famous for talking kind of loudly, said something like 40 bucks for this? This is bullshit. Like, why would you pay 40 bucks for this album? I couldn't remember what it was. But then the guy came back and he like explained to us in a detailed description of why it costs so much. Like this is like a rare imported version of this with it's a mono or whatever. But he didn't get mad at us, but he certainly wanted to set us straight as to why it was priced that high.
That's interesting because from what I've been learning about him, he seems like he's someone who really cares about objects and is like a really, really invested collector. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, he definitely knew what he was selling. It seemed just, I don't know if this is something worth noting, but in comparison with priceless books in Urbana or Jane Addams, just a block away in Champaign, he had a lot more of these, I don't know, things just seemed more bizarre there for some reason. He collected things that were more off the beaten path in terms of what people tend to read or want to buy, and I think that's why I liked it there more, just because things were odd and different, and I would see so many books there I'd never seen in any other bookstore before. I felt like, but I should say, because you asked me about the guy who owned it, I saw him maybe a third of the time, maybe half the time, but usually the woman working at the front desk was my friend's mom, Cindy Mann, and that was kind of cool to talk with her while I bought these things, and she talked to me about what I was buying and everything. So it was also just kind of a social thing to go in there, for a friendly environment, definitely.
And I heard that there were cats.
There were cats, definitely. At least one, probably two, and I think one was like white or anyway a light colored cat, and it usually sat on top of a box of records in the middle of the back room, and you didn't want to get anywhere near it. Like, I love cats, and I wanted to touch it. I wanted to pet it and make it be my friend, my bookstore cat friend. But it really was a hissy pissy cat, and it would hiss at you if you tried to make any sort of move at it. So it was kind of guarding the records, I guess, in a way. It was a lion guarding the horde, in a way.
And so my last question is just, what do you think about it not being there anymore, and what it's become?
Yeah, that's a real, I don't know, tough question to answer, because I haven't been into the gallery that's moved in there, but I've looked into it, and I'm definitely warmed up more to contemporary galleries than I was even 2 or 3 years ago. But I look in there, and now, they completely remodeled it, and I just had this the feeling of being kind of a time machine in a way, just full of these dusty old books. It's just the kind of description I guess you hear about most used bookstores. But now it's kind of cleaned up too much, and I enjoy this sort of seedy side. It wasn't necessarily like a sketchy place to go to, but it was just crammed full of stuff. You never knew what you were going to find hidden behind a bookshelf, and now it feels a lot more empty, because it is. And I heard a little bit about the controversy surrounding its change of hands and the guy getting kicked out, and what a drag that was for him. And it really upset me. But I think I was in college. I just started at Grinnell at that point, and I didn't live in town. I couldn't go over and defend his honor. I don't know what I could have done, but I would have gone and told him at least that I appreciated him being there. But yeah, I'm yet to set foot in the gallery. I want to, just to see it and see what's in there. But definitely, I think it was one of the big losses in downtown Champaign, and I think there are more to come, unfortunately. But for now, that's the one that's the business I miss the most, definitely.
And as far as the controversy goes, do you know any details about that?
I am probably misremembering things entirely, or I wasn't told things right, but as far as I know, the space was owned by the university, and professor's wife wanted to use it as her gallery, and basically the rug was pulled out from under the guy's feet, and the space was handed over to this woman who wanted to run the gallery. I don't know. It just seems like very questionable in the ethics involved with it. I don't know how the university owns a building in downtown Champaign. I never really followed through on that. All I know is he's Steve. Is that the guy's name? Maybe I'm mixing it up with somebody else. Anyway,
Michael Kaiser.
What did you say?
His name is Michael Kaiser. The guy, yeah.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, all I know is Old Main and Mike are not in downtown anymore, and that kind of stands out to me every time I'm walking past there. Yeah, the gallery doesn't do too much for me in terms of filling the gap left by strange and bizarre esoteric used books.
Thank you.
No problem.